The rain fell in a steady drizzle over Seattle, Washington, cloaking the city in a silvery mist that clung to the streets and blurred the edges of the towering skyline. In the heart of Capitol Hill, a small, cozy coffee shop named Brewed Awakening hummed with the quiet chatter of early morning regulars. The scent of freshly ground coffee beans mingled with the damp air that drifted in whenever the door swung open. Behind the counter, Lily Tran, an African-American single mother with warm brown eyes and a quick smile, worked with practiced efficiency. Her dark curls were pulled back into a loose bun, and her apron was slightly stained with espresso from the morning rush. At 32, Lily carried the weight of her responsibilities gracefully. However, the lines of fatigue around her eyes hinted at sleepless nights spent worrying about her 6-year-old son Ben. Lily wiped down the counter, her hands moving in rhythmic circles as she glanced at the clock. Her shift was nearing its end, and she was eager to pick up Ben from his after-school program. The bell above the door jingled, and she looked up to see a man in a tailored navy suit step inside, shaking rain from his umbrella. He was tall, with neatly trimmed blonde hair and piercing blue eyes that scanned the room with a quiet intensity. His presence shifted the air in the shop, drawing subtle glances from other customers. Lily noticed how his jaw tightened as he approached the counter, as if bracing himself for something unpleasant. "Good morning," Lily said brightly, her voice warm, despite the exhaustion tugging at her. "What can I get started for you?" Henry Caldwell, a white American tech billionaire known for his reclusive nature, offered a curt nod. "Black coffee, large. No sugar." Lily rang up the order, her fingers deft on the register. "Coming right up." "Name for the order, Henry," he said, his tone clipped as if giving his name was an inconvenience. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through emails, barely acknowledging her. Lily turned to the espresso machine, her movements quick but careful. She was used to customers like this, wealthy, distracted, treating her like part of the scenery. But as she poured the coffee, the machine hissed unexpectedly and her hand slipped. The cup tilted, and a stream of scalding coffee splashed onto Henry's pristine white shirt, staining it a dark brown. "Oh my God!" Lily gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "I'm so sorry." Henry froze, his eyes dropping to the spreading stain. His expression was unreadable for a moment, a mix of irritation and something else, something softer like surprise. He looked up at Lily, who grabbed a handful of napkins and rushed around the counter. "Here, let me—" She started dabbing at his shirt before realizing how awkward it was to be touching a stranger's chest. Her cheeks flushed, and she stepped back, holding out the napkins instead. "I'm so sorry, but I'll pay for the cleaning. Or a new shirt. Whatever you need." Henry took the napkins, his movements calm but deliberate. "It's fine," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. He wiped at the stain, his lips twitching into something that might have been a smile if it hadn't vanished so quickly. Accidents happen. Lily's heart raced. She could feel the eyes of the other customers on her, and her manager Karen was already hovering nearby, looking concerned. "Please let me make it right," Lily insisted. "I'll get you another coffee at the house." Henry waved a hand, dismissing the offer. "No need. Just be more careful next time." He reached into his wallet, pulled out a crisp business card, and slid it across the counter. "If you insist on making it up to me, call this number. My assistant can arrange for the shirt to be replaced." Lily took the card, her fingers trembling slightly. The name Henry Caldwell was printed in sleek, minimalist font alongside the logo of Caldwell Technologies. Her stomach dropped. She'd heard of him, everyone in Seattle had. The reclusive billionaire who'd built an empire on artificial intelligence, only to retreat from the public eye after a mysterious scandal years ago. And she'd just spilled coffee on him. I'll call," she stammered, though she had no intention of doing so. The idea of contacting a man like Henry Caldwell was unthinkable. She was just a barista scraping by to keep a roof over her and Ben's heads. What could she possibly offer someone like him? Henry nodded, took his coffee and left. Without another word, the bell jingling as the door closed behind him. Lily stared at the card, her mind racing. She slipped it into her apron pocket, telling herself to forget. But as she returned to cleaning the counter, she couldn't shake the memory of his eyes, sharp guarded, but with a flicker of something human beneath the surface. Henry Caldwell sat in the back of his sleek black Tesla, the city blurring past as his driver navigated the rain-slicked streets. The coffee stain on his shirt was a minor annoyance, but the encounter with the barista Lily, her name tag had read, lingered in his mind. There was something about her, something unguarded and real, in a world he'd come to see as cold and calculated. He leaned back, closing his eyes, and let his thoughts drift. At 40, Henry was a man defined by his contradictions. He'd built Caldwell Technologies from a dorm room startup into a global powerhouse revolutionizing AI with algorithms that could predict human behavior with uncanny accuracy. But success had come at a cost. 5 years ago, a prototype AI had malfunctioned, leaking sensitive data and costing his company millions. The media had crucified him, painting him as a reckless genius who played God with technology. Since then, he'd retreated into a fortress of solitude, trusting few and avoiding the spotlight. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Marcus Reed, his former partner turned bitter rival. The message was short. "Heard you're working on something big, Henry. Care to share?" Henry deleted it without responding. Marcus had been sniffing around his latest project, a revolutionary AI that could adapt to human emotions in real time. If it succeeded, it would change the industry. If it failed, it could destroy what was left of his reputation. Henry's thoughts returned to Lily. He didn't know why he'd given her his card. It wasn't about the shirt, he had dozens like it. Maybe it was how she'd looked at him, not with awe or greed, but with genuine remorse. Perhaps it was how her smile faltered when she realized who he was, as if his wealth was a barrier rather than a bridge. He shook his head, annoyed at himself. He had no time for distractions, not when Marcus circled like a shark. Lily finished her shift at the coffee shop and picked up Ben from his after-school program. The 6-year-old bounded toward her, his backpack bouncing against his small frame. "Mom, we learned about robots today," he said, his eyes excitedly bright. "Can we build one?" Lily laughed, ruffling his tight curls. "Maybe one day, buddy. For now, let's get home and make some mac and cheese." As they walked through the rain, Ben chattering about circuits and gears, Lily's hand brushed the business card in her pocket. She pulled it out, staring at Henry's name. For a moment, she considered calling, but the thought made her stomach twist. Men like Henry Caldwell didn't belong in her world. She tucked the card away, determined to forget the encounter, unaware that fate had other plans. The next morning, Lily was back at Brewed Awakening, pouring espresso and exchanging small talk with regulars. The routine was comforting, a steady rhythm in her otherwise unpredictable life. But when the bell jingled and Henry walked in, her heart skipped a beat. He was dressed more casually today, in a charcoal sweater and jeans, but his presence still commanded the room. "Morning," he said, approaching the counter with a faint smile. "No spills today." Lily's cheeks warmed. No promises, she teased, surprising herself with her boldness. "Same order?" "Black coffee. No sugar." He nodded, his eyes lingering on her momentarily longer than necessary. "You didn't call," he said, his tone light but curious. Lily busied herself with the coffee machine, avoiding his gaze. "You didn't need me to replace your shirt. You may have a closet full of them." Henry chuckled, a low, warm sound that caught her off guard. "You're not wrong, but I meant what I said. I want to make this right." Lily handed him his coffee, her fingers brushing his for a fleeting moment. "You don't owe me anything, Mr. Caldwell. I'm the one who ruined your shirt." "Henry," he corrected, his voice softer now. "And it's not about the shirt. Let me take you and your son out somewhere. A park, maybe. My way of saying no hard feelings." Lily hesitated. The idea of spending time with a billionaire was absurd, but there was something genuine in his offer that made her want to say yes. "I'll think about it," she said finally, handing him a fresh cup. "But no promises." Henry took the coffee, his fingers lingering on the cup. "Fair enough," he said, and with a nod, he was gone. Lily felt a strange mix of curiosity and caution as she watched him leave. Henry Caldwell was a puzzle she wasn't sure she wanted to solve. But as she slipped his card back into her pocket, she couldn't deny the spark of something new, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Henry Caldwell's office at Caldwell Technologies was a study in minimalism, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Puget Sound, a sleek glass desk, and walls bare except for a single framed blueprint of his first AI algorithm. He sat at his desk, staring at a string of code on his monitor, but his mind was elsewhere. Lily Tran. The name rolled through his thoughts like a melody he couldn't shake. He didn't understand why she'd gotten under his skin. She was just a barista, a stranger, yet her warmth, her unguarded sincerity felt like a lifeline in the sterile world he'd built around himself. His assistant Clara knocked lightly before entering. Mr. Reed called again. She said, her tone cautious. "He wants a meeting to discuss a potential partnership." Henry's jaw tightened. Marcus Reed was no partner. He was a predator always looking for a way to undermine him. "Tell him I'm not interested," Henry said, his voice cold. "And double-check the security of the new AI project. I don't want any leaks." Clara nodded and left, leaving Henry to his thoughts. The new AI, codenamed Empatha, was his redemption. Unlike his previous failure, Empatha was designed to understand and respond to human emotions, not just predict them. It could revolutionize therapy, education, and even customer service. But it was a risky endeavor, and Marcus knew it. He could sabotage everything if he got his hands on even a fragment of the code. Henry's phone buzzed with a notification from his security team, an unauthorized login attempt on the company's servers. It was subtle, almost undetectable, but it bore Marcus's signature, a hacker's sleight of hand. Henry cursed under his breath. He needed to focus, but his mind drifted back to the coffee shop, to Lily's quick smile, and how her eyes softened when she spoke. Across town, Lily was navigating her own challenges. Her small apartment in Rainier Valley was cluttered but cozy, filled with Ben's drawings and secondhand furniture. She sat at the kitchen table balancing her checkbook while Ben played with a toy robot on the floor. The numbers weren't adding up. Rent was due. Ben's school supplies were piling up and her car needed repairs. She sighed, rubbing her temples. Being a single mom was a constant juggling act, and she ran out of hands. "Mom, can we go to the park tomorrow?" Ben asked, looking up from his robot. His brown eyes, so like her own, were wide with hope. Lily forced a smile. "Maybe, buddy. I've got a double shift, but we'll see." Ben's face fell, and guilt twisted in Lily's chest. She hated disappointing him, but survival came first. Her thoughts drifted to Henry's offer, a trip to the park with him and Ben. It was tempting, not just because of Ben's excitement, but because of how Henry looked at her, like he saw her not just the barista who'd spilled his coffee. But men like him didn't stick around for women like her. She'd learned that lesson the hard way with Ben's father, who'd left when Ben was a baby. The next day, at Brood Awakening, Lily was wiping down tables when a new customer approached the counter. He was in his late 30s with slick dark hair and a charming smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Hi there," he said, leaning casually against the counter. "I'm Marcus. I've been coming here for a while, and you make the best coffee in Seattle. Lily laughed, flattered despite herself. Thanks, but it's just coffee. What can I get you? Marcus ordered a latte, chatting easily as she worked. He asked about her life, her son, her dreams, and Lily found herself opening up, grateful for the friendly distraction. When he mentioned he owned a tech startup and was looking for part-time help, her ears perked up. It's mostly admin work, he said, sliding his card across the counter. Good pay, flexible hours. Perfect for a single mom. Lily hesitated, but the promise of extra income was too good to pass up. She said, I'll think about it, tucking the card into her apron next to Henry's. Marcus grinned. You won't regret it, Lily. We're going to get along great. That evening, Henry was back at Brood Awakening, unable to stay away. The shop was quieter now, the after-work crowd thinning out. Lily was behind the counter, her movements slower, her face drawn with fatigue. When she saw him, her eyes widened in surprise, then softened. Back for more punishment, she teased, pouring his usual black coffee. Henry smiled, a rare, genuine smile that felt foreign on his lips. Maybe I'm a glutton for it, or I like the coffee. Lily handed him the cup, their fingers brushing again. This time, neither pulled away immediately. So Henry said, leaning against the counter, Have you considered my offer? The park you and Ben. Lily bit her lip, torn. Ben would love it. But she couldn't shake the fear that Henry's interest was fleeting, a whim of a rich man bored with his perfect life. Why me? She asked suddenly, her voice quiet but firm. You could have anyone's company. Why a barista who can't even pour coffee right? Henry's expression softened, and for a moment the guarded billionaire was replaced by someone honest. Because you're not trying to impress me, he said. Most people do. You don't. Lily didn't know how to respond. Before she could, the bell jingled, and Marcus walked in. His eyes flicked between Lily and Henry, and his smile tightened. Well, he said, his tone too casual. Henry Caldwell. Didn't expect to see you slumming it in a coffee shop. Henry's posture stiffened, his eyes narrowing. Marcus, what are you doing here, just getting a coffee? Marcus said, his gaze sliding to Lily. And making a new friend. Lily felt a chill, sensing the tension between the two men. She handed Marcus his latte, eager to diffuse the situation. Here you go, she said, her voice overly bright. See you tomorrow. Marcus winked at her. Count on it. He left, but not before shooting Henry a look that promised trouble. Henry turned back to Lily, his expression unreadable. Be careful with him, he said quietly. Marcus isn't what he seems. Lily frowned, confused but uneasy. He's just a customer, she said, but the words felt hollow. As Henry left, she pulled out Marcus's card, then Henry's, comparing them. Two men, two worlds, and she was caught in the middle, unaware of the storm brewing around her. The rain had softened to a gentle mist when Lily Tran locked the door of her modest Rainier Valley apartment, her arms laden with grocery bags. The Seattle evening was fabulous. The air was heavy, and the pavement was wet and had a pine scent. Inside the apartment was a small sanctuary of controlled chaos. Ben's crayons scattered across the coffee table, a pile of laundry waiting to be folded, and a faint hum of the old refrigerator that groaned more than it cooled. Lily set the bags on the counter, her shoulders aching from a double shift at Brood Awakening. At 32, she was used to the grind, but the weight of being a single mother to her 6-year-old son, Ben, never got lighter. Mom, can I have a cookie? Ben's voice piped up from the living room, where he was sprawled on the rug, building a lopsided tower out of wooden blocks. His tight curls bounced as he looked up, his brown eyes wide with hope. Dinner first, Buddy, Lily said, forcing a smile despite the fatigue pulling at her. How about we make some spaghetti? Ben groaned dramatically, but didn't argue, returning to his blocks with a pout. Lily watched him momentarily, her heart swelling with love and guilt. Ben was her world, a bright, curious boy who deserved more than she could give him. The apartment was cramped, the neighborhood wasn't the safest, and every month was a tightrope between rent bills and Ben's needs. She'd been saving for a new pair of sneakers for him. His current ones were so worn the soles were peeling, but the car's sputtering engine had eaten up her last paycheck. Lily's mind wandered to Henry Caldwell as she boiled water for the spaghetti. The billionaire's unexpected return to the coffee shop that morning had thrown her off balance. His offer to take her and Ben to the park lingered like a melody she couldn't shake. It wasn't just the gesture. It was how he'd looked at her like he saw past the apron and the coffee stains to something real. But that was the problem. Men like Henry, wealthy, powerful, untouchable, didn't belong in her world. Years ago, she'd learned that lesson when Ben's father, a charming law student with big promises, had walked out without a backward glance. Lily stirred the pasta, her thoughts drifting to the other card in her apron pocket. Marcus Reed's. His offer of a part-time job had been tempting, almost too good to be true. Extra income could mean new shoes for Ben, maybe even a trip to the science museum he'd been begging to visit. But Henry's warning about Marcus echoed in her mind. Be careful with him. He's not what he seems. She shook her head, annoyed at herself. Why was she letting a near stranger's words get to her? Marcus was just a friendly customer, and Henry was… what? A billionaire with a savior complex, or something more. Mom, it's gonna boil over. Ben's voice snapped her back to reality. The pot was bubbling furiously, foam creeping over the edge. Lily cursed under her breath and turned down the heat, grabbing a pot holder to save the pasta. Ben giggled, and she shot him a playful glare. You're supposed to help me, not laugh at me. Sorry, he said, not sounding sorry at all. He scampered over to the counter, climbing onto a stool to help by tossing a handful of shredded cheese into a bowl. Lily watched him, her heart aching with love. Everything she did was for him. It would be worth a call if Marcus's job offer could make their lives a little easier. The next morning, at Brood Awakening, the coffee shop was a whirlwind of activity. The morning rush brought a steady stream of customers, from harried office workers to hipsters with laptops. Lily moved with practiced ease, steaming milk, pouring espresso, and bantering with regulars. But her mind was elsewhere, replaying her encounter with Henry and Marcus. She'd tucked both business cards into her purse, unsure what to do. Around mid-morning, Marcus strolled in, his dark hair slicked back, his smile as polished as his designer shoes. Morning, Lily, he said, leaning against the counter. You're looking radiant as always. Lily rolled her eyes, but couldn't help but smile. Flattery won't get you a discount, Marcus. Usual latte. You know me too well, he said, his eyes twinkling with something that made her uneasy. As she prepared his drink, he leaned closer, lowering his voice. Have you thought about my offer? The job's yours if you want it. Flexible hours, good pay, perfect for someone with a busy life. Lily hesitated, steaming the milk with a hiss. The extra money would be a lifeline, but Henry's warning nagged at her. What is the job? She said, keeping her tone neutral. You said admin work, but what does that mean? Marcus waved a hand, casual but vague. Oh, organizing files, scheduling meetings, maybe some light research. Nothing you can't handle. My company's working on exciting tech projects. We need reliable people. Lily handed him his latte, her fingers brushing the cup. She said, I'll let you know, echoing her response to Henry. I've got a lot on my plate right now. Marcus's smile didn't falter, but his eyes narrowed slightly, as if he could sense her hesitation. Fair enough. But don't wait too long, Lily. Opportunities like this don't come around every day. He dropped a 20 on the counter, far more than the cost of his latte, and walked out, leaving her uneasy feeling. That afternoon, Lily picked up Ben from his after-school program, He was bouncing with energy, clutching a drawing of a robot he'd made in art class. "Look, Mom, it's a helper bot. It can do your dishes and play soccer." Lily laughed, taking the drawing. "I need one of those. Think you can build it for me?" Ben grinned, launching into a detailed explanation of his robot's features as they walked home. But as they passed a park, he tugged at her hand. "Can we play?" "For a little bit?" Lily glanced at her watch. She had a few hours before her evening shift, and Ben's pleading eyes were hard to resist. "Okay, but just for a bit." The park was a small oasis of green in the urban sprawl, with a playground where kids swarmed over slides and swings. Lily sat on a bench, watching Ben race to the monkey bars. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she pulled it out, expecting a reminder about her shift. Instead, it was a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Henry. Still thinking about that park trip. I'm free this weekend." Lily's heart skipped. How had he gotten her number? Then she remembered she'd given it to his assistant when she'd called to apologize for the coffee incident, though she'd never followed through on replacing his shirt. She stared at the message, torn. Ben would love a day out, and part of her was curious about Henry. But the gap between their worlds felt like a chasm. Before she could respond, Ben ran over breathless. "Mom, there's a guy with a dog. Can I pet it?" Lily looked up to see a man with a golden retriever nearby, but her eyes caught on someone else. Henry standing at the park's edge, his hands in his pockets. He was dressed casually in a gray sweater and jeans, but his presence was unmistakable. Their eyes met, and he gave a small wave, walking over. "He said he didn't expect to see you here," his voice warm but cautious. "I was just passing by." Lily raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "You just passing by a random park in Rainier Valley?" Henry chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Okay, you got me. I was hoping to run into you. I meant what I said about the park. Ben seems like he'd have fun." Hearing his name, Ben looked up from the dog he was petting. "Who's that, Mom?" Lily hesitated, then introduced them. "Ben, this is Henry. He's a friend from the coffee shop." Henry knelt to Ben's level, his smile genuine. "Hey, Ben, I hear you like robots. Ever built one?" Ben's eyes lit up. "Yeah. Well, I made one out of blocks." Wanna see? Henry sat with Ben on the grass for the next half hour, listening intently as the boy explained his imaginary robot's features. Lily watched her guard softening. Henry wasn't what she'd expected. Not arrogant or aloof, but patient, engaged, almost like he enjoyed Ben's chatter as much as she did. As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow over the park, Henry turned to Lily. "So what do you say? Saturday, the three of us, maybe Green Lake Park. I'll bring a soccer ball for Ben." Lily bit her lip, her heart tugging in two directions. "I'll think about it," she said, echoing her earlier caution. But as she watched Henry high-five Ben, she felt a flicker of something dangerous hope. The weekend arrived with a rare break in Seattle's relentless rain, a pale blue sky streaked with wispy clouds. Lily stood in her apartment adjusting Ben's jacket as he bounced excitedly. "Are we really going to the park with Henry?" he asked for the 10th time that morning. "Yes, buddy," Lily said, smoothing his curls. "But you have to promise to behave okay. No running off." Ben nodded vigorously, already clutching a toy robot he insisted on bringing. Lily's stomach fluttered with nerves. After a sleepless night of debate, she'd agreed to Henry's park outing, telling herself it was for Ben's sake. But deep down, she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward Henry. His presence made her feel seen in a way she hadn't in years. Green Lake Park's air was crisp, the lake sparkling under the sunlight. Families dotted the grassy fields, and joggers wove along the paths. Henry was waiting near the playground, a soccer ball tucked under his arm. He wore a simple black jacket and jeans, but his easy confidence made him stand out. When he saw Lily and Ben, his face lit up with a smile that caught her breath. "Hey, you made it," he said, tossing the ball to Ben, who caught it with a grin. "Ready to show me your moves, kid?" Ben didn't need to be asked twice. He took off toward an open field, kicking the ball with more enthusiasm than skill. Henry followed, calling out playful encouragement while Lily trailed behind, her hands in her pockets. She watched Henry run alongside Ben, pretending to stumble dramatically when Ben scored a goal. The boys' laughter echoed across the field, and Lily felt a warmth she hadn't known she was missing. "You're good with him," she said when Henry jogged back to her, slightly out of breath. "Not what I expected from a tech mogul." Henry raised an eyebrow, amused. "What, you thought I'd be all suits and spreadsheets?" "Maybe," Lily admitted, smiling. "You don't exactly scream soccer, Dad." He laughed, a low, warm sound that made her stomach flip. "Fair enough. I didn't have much of a childhood myself. Guess I'm making up for it." Lily tilted her head, curious. "What do you mean?" Henry hesitated, his gaze drifting to the lake. "Grew up in foster care," he said after a moment. "I moved around a lot and never had a place to call home. Built my company to prove I could be something, but—" He trailed off, shrugging. "Sometimes I wonder if I missed out on the real stuff like this." Lily was quiet, processing his words. She'd assumed Henry's life was all privilege and power, but this glimpse of vulnerability caught her off guard. "Ben's dad left when he was a baby," she said softly, surprising herself. "I've tried to be enough for him, but it's hard. He deserves more." Henry looked at her, his blue eyes steady. "He's lucky to have you. You're doing more than you know." The sincerity in his voice made her chest tighten. They stood silently for a moment, watching Ben chase the ball across the field. Then Henry cleared his throat. "Come on, let's join him. I can beat you both in a race." Lily laughed, the tension easing. "You're on." The afternoon passed in a blur of laughter and play. Henry taught Ben how to juggle the soccer ball, and Lily joined in her competitive streak, emerging as she tried to outdo them both. By the time they collapsed on a blanket for a picnic, sandwiches and juice boxes Henry had brought, Lily felt lighter than she had in months. Back at Caldwell Technologies, Henry was buried in work, his mind only half on the code scrolling across his screen. The day at the park had been a revelation. Ben's infectious energy, Lily's quiet strength. It was like stepping into a world he'd never known he wanted. But reality was waiting, and it wasn't kind. Clara knocked on his door, her expression tense. "Sir, we've had another security breach attempt. It's sophisticated, same signature as the last one." Henry's jaw clenched. "Marcus." "Lock it down," he said, "and get me a full report. I want to know exactly what he's after." As Clara left, Henry's thoughts turned to Lily. He'd seen Marcus at the coffee shop, the way he'd looked at her like a predator sizing up prey. If Marcus were targeting his company, he wouldn't hesitate to use anyone to get what he wanted. The thought of Lily caught in that crossfire made Henry's blood cold. On Monday, Lily was back at Brood Awakening, her mind buzzing from the park outing. Ben hadn't stopped talking about Henry, and she couldn't deny the spark she'd felt. But when Marcus walked in, his smile as charming as ever, her unease returned. "Hey, Lily," he said, leaning against the counter. "Thought any more about that job? I could really use someone like you." Lily hesitated, her fingers tightening around a coffee cup. The extra money was tempting, but Henry's warning echoed in her mind. "Can you tell me more about it?" she asked, keeping her tone neutral. "Like what kind of research?" Marcus's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just market stuff, competitor analysis." "You'd be perfect. Why don't you come by my office tomorrow? I'll show you around and make it official." Lily nodded slowly, her gut twisting. "I'll let you know," she said, handing him his latte. As Marcus left, Lily pulled out her phone and stared at Henry's last text. Maybe it was time to trust her instincts and Henry's warning. But with bills piling up and Ben's needs growing, she couldn't afford to say no to opportunity. Caught between hope and caution, Lily felt the weight of a choice she wasn't ready to make. The Seattle sky was a canvas of gray, the clouds heavy with the promise of rain, as Lily Tran walked Ben to his after-school program. The 6-year-old skipped beside her, his backpack bouncing, his chatter about robots and soccer filling the crisp morning air. Lily smiled, but her mind was elsewhere, tangled in the web of choices that had begun to tighten around her. The memory of the park outing with Henry Caldwell lingered like a warm glow, but Marcus Reed's job offer cast a shadow she couldn't shake. Back at Brood Awakening, the coffee shop buzzed with the mid-morning rush. Lily moved through her tasks, mechanically steaming milk and pouring espresso, while her thoughts churned. Marcus's offer was a lifeline. Extra income could mean new sneakers for Ben, maybe even a savings account for emergencies. But Henry's warning about Marcus, delivered with quiet intensity, had planted a seed of doubt. "He's not what he seems." The words echoed, making her question her instincts. As if summoned by her thoughts, Marcus strolled into the shop just before noon, his dark hair slicked back, his smile as polished as ever. He wore a tailored blazer that screamed money, and his presence drew curious glances from other customers. "Morning, Lily," he said, leaning casually against the counter. "You're looking stressed. Everything okay?" Lily forced a smile, wiping her hands on her apron. "Just a busy day. Usual latte." "You know it," Marcus said, his eyes lingering on her. "So, have you decided on the job? I could really use someone with your intuition." Lily hesitated, pouring steamed milk into his cup. The word intuition felt loaded, as if he knew more about her than he let on. "I'm still thinking," she said, keeping her tone light. "Can you give me more details? Like what kind of competitor analysis?" Marcus waved a hand, his smile never wavering. "Nothing too complicated. We're looking at trends in the tech industry, especially AI. You'd be organizing data and chatting with a few contacts. Easy money for someone as sharp as you." Lily handed him his latte, her fingers brushing the cup. The offer sounded straightforward, but something in Marcus's tone, a hint of calculation, made her skin prickle. She said, "I'll let you know by tomorrow," echoing her usual cautious response. Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly, but his smile held. "Don't wait too long, Lily. I'd hate for someone else to snatch this up." As he always did, he dropped a 20 on the counter and sauntered out, leaving her with a knot in her stomach. At Caldwell Technologies, Henry sat in his stark, glass-walled office, his eyes fixed on a string of code that refused to cooperate. The Empatha project was at a critical stage, its algorithms nearing completion, but the pressure was mounting. Marcus Reed's latest attempt to breach the company's servers had been thwarted, but it was only a matter of time before he tried again. Henry's team was working around the clock to secure the system, but the real threat wasn't digital, it was personal. Henry's thoughts drifted to Lily. The park outing had been a revelation, a glimpse into a life he'd never allowed himself to imagine. Ben's laughter, Lily's quiet strength had stirred something in him, a longing he'd buried under years of ambition and isolation. But Marcus's presence at the coffee shop had set off alarm bells. Henry knew Marcus too well. The man was a master manipulator, always looking for leverage. If he was sniffing around Lily, it wasn't a coincidence. His phone buzzed with a message from Clara, his assistant Marcus Reed, spotted at Brood Awakening again. Security flagged him as a person of interest. "Want us to dig deeper?" Henry's jaw tightened. "Yes," he typed back. find out what he's after, and keep an eye on Lily Tran. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. Lily was a complication he hadn't anticipated. He'd given her his number impulsively, driven by a spark he couldn't explain. With Marcus circling, he wondered if he'd made a mistake. But the thought of pulling away, of letting her slip out of his life, was unbearable. That evening, Lily sat at her kitchen table, her checkbook open, and the numbers were a grim reminder of her reality. Rent was due in a week, and Ben's school had sent a notice about unpaid field trip fees. She sighed, running a hand through her curls. Marcus's job offer looked more necessary by the minute, but Henry's warning gnawed at her. She pulled out her phone and read Henry's last text. Green Lake was fun. How about dinner next time? Just the three of us. Her thumb hovered over the reply button, but she set the phone down. Dinner with a billionaire. It sounded like a fantasy, but fantasies didn't pay bills. Instead, she reached for Marcus's card, dialing the number before she could second-guess herself. Lily. Good to hear from you, Marcus, answered his voice smooth as silk. Ready to join the team? Lily took a deep breath. I'm interested, she said. Can I come by tomorrow to talk more? Absolutely. Marcus said, a hint of triumph in his tone. Come to my office downtown at 10 o'clock. I'll show you the ropes. Lily hung up, her heart pounding. She told herself it was just a job, a way to provide for Ben. But as she tucked her son into bed, reading him a story about a brave robot, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into something dangerous. The next morning, Lily stood outside Marcus's office building, a sleek glass tower that dwarfed the surrounding structures. She'd dressed in her best blouse and slacks, her nerves jangling as she entered the lobby. Marcus greeted her with a broad smile, ushering her into a conference room with a view of the Puget Sound. Welcome to Reed Innovations, he said, gesturing to a chair. We're a small team, but we're making big waves in AI. You'll be helping us stay ahead of the competition. Lily nodded, clutching her purse. What exactly would I be doing? Marcus leaned back, his expression casual, but his eyes sharp. You'll start by organizing project files such as schedules, budgets, etc. But I've got a special task for you. I need someone to keep tabs on a competitor, Caldwell Technologies. Nothing shady, just public info. News articles, press releases, and some chatter from industry contacts. Lily's stomach twisted. Henry's company. Why Caldwell? She asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. Marcus shrugged, but his smile was too perfect. They're the big players in AI. We need to know what they're up to. You've met Henry Caldwell, haven't you? At the coffee shop? Lily's pulse quickened. Yeah, briefly. He's a customer. Marcus's eyes gleamed. Perfect. Let me know if you hear rumors, plans, or anything. It's all part of the job. Lily nodded, her throat tight. She wanted to ask more, but Marcus was already moving on, handing her a stack of paperwork to sign. As she left the office contract in hand, she felt a weight settle over her. She'd taken the job for Ben, but the mention of Henry had turned it into something more complicated. That afternoon, Henry walked into Brood Awakening, his heart lifting at the sight of Lily behind the counter. She looked tired, her curls escaping her bun, but her smile when she saw him was genuine. Back again, she teased, already reaching for a coffee cup. You must really like getting burned. Henry chuckled, leaning against the counter. Maybe I'm addicted to the risk. Or the company. Lily's cheeks warmed and she busied herself with the coffee machine. How's your week going? She asked, avoiding his gaze. Busy, Henry said, watching her closely. How about you? Any big plans? Lily hesitated, her hands pausing on the espresso machine. She wanted to tell him about Marcus's job, to ask what he'd meant by his warning, but the words stuck in her throat. Just work, she said finally. And Ben, of course. Henry nodded, sensing her unease. If you ever need anything, Lily, you can call me. No strings. She handed him his coffee, their fingers brushing. "Thanks," she said softly. "I'll keep that in mind." As Henry left, Lily watched him go, her heart torn. Marcus's job was a practical choice, but Henry's offer of friendship, maybe more, felt like a risk she wasn't sure she could take. Caught between necessity and instinct, she felt the first threads of Marcus's web tightening around her, unaware of how deep it would pull her in. The Seattle skyline glittered under a rare starry night, the city's lights reflecting off the dark waters of Lake Washington. Lily sat on her apartment's small balcony, a mug of tea cooling in her hands as she stared at the horizon. Ben was asleep inside his robot toys scattered across his bed, and the quiet gave her too much space to think. Her first week at Marcus's company had been a blur of paperwork and training, but the task he'd given her keeping tabs on Caldwell Technologies hung over her like a storm cloud. She'd seen Henry twice since starting the job at Brood Awakening. Each encounter had left her more conflicted. His easy smile, unexpected warmth with Ben, the way he seemed to see her as more than a barista. It all chipped away at her defenses. But Marcus's instructions were clear, and the extra paycheck had already covered Ben's field trip fees and a new pair of sneakers. She couldn't afford to back out now, not when every dollar meant security for her son. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a text from Henry. "Had fun at the park. Ben's a natural with a soccer ball. How about dinner tomorrow? My place. Nothing fancy." Lily's heart skipped, but doubt crept in. Dinner at a billionaire's house. It sounded like a scene from a movie, not her life. And what if Marcus found out? She typed a reply, then deleted it, her thumb hovering over the screen. Before she could decide, another text came through, this one from Marcus. "Great work this week, Lily. Got anything on Caldwell yet?" Her stomach churned. She hadn't given Marcus anything substantial, just vague summaries of public news about Caldwell Technologies. But his persistence was unsettling, and she couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching her more closely than he let on. The next evening, Lily stood outside Henry's house on Lake Washington, Ben's hand in hers. The house was modern, but understated, with clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows that glowed warmly against the twilight. Lily had agreed to dinner after Ben's relentless begging, but her nerves were frayed. She wore a simple navy dress, her best attempt at looking presentable, while Ben clutched his robot toy wide-eyed at the sight of the house. Henry answered the door in a sweater and jeans, his smile disarming. "You made it," he said, stepping aside. "Welcome to my fortress of solitude." Ben giggled, peering inside. "Do you have robots here?" Henry winked. "Maybe a few. Want to see?" The house was spacious but cozy, with hardwood floors and shelves lined with books and tech gadgets. Henry led them to the dining room, where a table was set with pizza salad and juice for Ben. "I figured kid-friendly was the way to go," Henry said, catching Lily's amused look. "She said you didn't have to go to all this trouble settling Ben at the table." "It's no trouble," Henry replied, his eyes soft. "I wanted to." Dinner was surprisingly easy. Ben chattered about school. Henry listened with genuine interest, and Lily relaxed, caught up in the moment's warmth. After dinner, Henry showed Ben a small drone he'd built, letting the boy control it around the living room. Lily watched from the couch, her heart swelling at Ben's laughter. Henry led them to the back deck as the night grew late, where the lake shimmered under the moonlight. Ben ran to the edge, pointing at the stars, while Henry stood beside Lily, his shoulder brushing hers. "Thanks for coming," he said quietly. "I know it's a lot to let someone like me into your world." Lily looked at him, her guard slipping. "It's not that," she said. "It's just, my world's messy. Ben's my priority, and I don't have room for complications." Henry nodded, his expression serious. "I get that, but I'm not here to complicate things. I like being around you, both of you." The sincerity in his voice made her breath catch. Under the moonlight, with Ben's laughter in the background, Lily felt a pull she couldn't ignore. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at it, a text from Marcus. "Need you to check on Caldwell's latest project. Anything you hear, no matter how small." Lily's heart sank. She slipped the phone back into her pocket, but Henry noticed the change in her expression. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah," she lied, forcing a smile. "Work." Henry studied her, his eyes searching, but he didn't push. As they said goodnight and Lily drove home with Ben asleep in the back seat, she felt the weight of her choices pressing down. Marcus's job was supposed to be a solution, but it was starting to feel like a trap. The next day at Reed Innovations, Marcus called Lily into his office. The room was all glass and steel, starkly contrasting with Henry's warm home. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his smile sharp. "So, Lily, how's our special project going? Anything on Caldwell?" Lily's throat tightened. She'd been dreading this moment. "Not much," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Just what's in the news. They're working on some new AI, but it's all vague." Marcus's eyes narrowed, but his smile didn't falter. "Come on, Lily. You're smarter than that. You've seen Caldwell at the coffee shop. He's taken a liking to you. People talk when they're comfortable. Maybe you've heard something." Lily's pulse raced. "He's just a customer," she said, but the words felt weak. Marcus's gaze was like a blade cutting through her defenses. "Lily," he said, his tone softening, but laced with steel. "You're part of the team now. We're counting on you. If you can't deliver, I might have to rethink your role. And I'd hate to see you and Ben struggle." The mention of Ben made her blood run cold. "I'll do my best," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus nodded, satisfied. "Good. I knew you were the right choice." That evening, Lily was back at Brood Awakening, her mind a storm of guilt and fear. When Henry walked in, her heart lifted and sank simultaneously. He leaned against the counter, his smile easy. "Dinner was fun," he said. "Ben's a great kid. You're doing something right." Lily managed a smile, but it felt brittle. "Thanks. He likes you." Henry's eyes softened. "And you? What do you think of me?" The question caught her off guard. She wanted to tell him everything about Marcus. The job, the pressure, but fear held her back. "You're not what I expected," she said finally. "But I'm still figuring you out." Henry chuckled, but his gaze was intense. "Fair enough. Just don't figure too long." As he left, Lily pulled out her phone and stared at Marcus's latest text. "Caldwell's hiding something big. Get me details by next week or we're done." Her hands trembled as she tucked the phone away. She'd wanted to protect Ben, to build a better life, but now she was caught in a game she didn't understand. And with Henry's kindness pulling at her heart and Marcus's threats looming, Lily knew she was running out of time to choose a side. The Seattle dusk painted the sky in hues of indigo and gold, the city's lights flickering to life as Lily Tran locked the door of Brood Awakening after a long shift. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the chill in the air, but from the weight of Marcus Reed's latest text. "Details on Caldwell's project by Friday, or you're out." The words felt like a noose tightening around her neck. She'd taken the job at Reed Innovations to provide for Ben, her 6-year-old son, but now it was pulling her into a world of secrets and betrayal for which she wasn't prepared. Lily walked to her car, her thoughts tangled with guilt and fear. Henry Caldwell's kindness, his unexpected warmth with Ben, the way he'd looked at her under the moonlight at his Lake Washington home, had stirred something in her she hadn't felt in years. But Marcus's demands were precise: spy on Henry, or lose the job keeping her and Ben afloat. The choice was tearing her apart. Ben was sprawled on the living room rug at home, surrounded by his robot toys and a half-finished spaceship drawing. "Mom, look," he said, holding up the paper. "It's got laser beams and a snack bar." Lily forced a smile, ruffling his curls. "That's amazing, buddy. You're going to be a rocket scientist one day." She sank onto the couch, her body heavy with exhaustion. Ben climbed up beside her, snuggling against her side. "Are we seeing Henry again?" he asked, his voice hopeful. "He's cool. He knows about drones." Lily's heart ached. Maybe she said softly, "We'll see." After tucking Ben into bed, Lily sat at the kitchen table staring at her phone. Henry's last text glowed on the screen. Dinner was excellent. Let's do it again soon. She wanted to reply to tell him how much the evening had meant to her, but Marcus's threat loomed large. She couldn't afford to lose her job, not with rent due and Ben's school fees piling up. But betraying Henry felt like a betrayal of herself. The next morning, Lily was back at Brood Awakening, her movements mechanical as she served the morning rush. When Henry walked in, her heart skipped a beat. He was dressed casually in a gray sweater, his blonde hair slightly tousled, but his presence still commanded the room. His blue eyes softened when they met hers, and momentarily, the chaos of her thoughts stilled. "Morning," he said, leaning against the counter. "You okay? You look like you didn't sleep." Lily managed a weak smile, pouring his usual black coffee. "Just life, you know. Single mom stuff." Henry nodded, his gaze searching. "If you need to talk, I'm here. No pressure." The sincerity in his voice made her chest tighten. She wanted to tell him everything about Marcus, the job, the impossible choice, but fear held her back. "Thanks," she said, handing him his coffee. "I'll keep that in mind." As Henry left, Lily's phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. "Don't forget our deal. Caldwell's office tomorrow. Find something useful." Her stomach churned. Marcus had escalated his demands, asking her to visit Henry's office, under the pretense of delivering coffee, a chance to snoop for information. The idea made her sick, but she couldn't see a way out. That afternoon, Lily stood outside Caldwell Technologies, a tray of coffee cups in her hands, as a flimsy excuse for her visit. The building was a sleek monolith of glass and steel, its lobby a sterile expanse of marble and modern art. She'd called Henry's assistant, Clara, claiming she was dropping off a thank you for the dinner, but her real mission was Marcus's. Her heart pounded as she rode the elevator to the top floor where Henry's office overlooked the Puget Sound. Clara greeted her with a polite smile, ushering her into Henry's office. He was at his desk, his brow furrowed as he studied a monitor filled with code. When he saw Lily, his face lit up, chasing away the tension in his expression. "Lily," he said, standing. "This is a surprise. Coffee delivery." Lily forced a smile, setting the tray on his desk. "Just a thank you for dinner. Ben hasn't stopped talking about that drone." Henry chuckled, his eyes warm. "He's a great kid. You're doing a fantastic job with him." Lily's throat tightened. She wanted to stay in this moment, to pretend she was just a woman, bringing coffee to a man she was starting to care about. But Marcus's instructions echoed in her mind. Look for anything on the Empatha project. Her eyes darted to the desk, where a folder labeled Empatha sat partially open, revealing a glimpse of technical diagrams. Henry followed her gaze, his expression shifting. "Something wrong?" he asked, his voice gentle but cautious. "No," Lily said quickly, her cheeks flushing. "Just curious about what you do. All this tech stuff is over my head." Henry relaxed, gesturing to the folder. "That's my latest project. It's an AI, but not like the usual stuff. It's designed to understand emotions and help people in ways tech hasn't before. It's personal to me." Lily nodded, her heart racing. This was precisely what Marcus wanted. She could photograph the folder, send it to him, and secure her job. But as she looked at Henry, his vulnerability laid bare, she felt a wave of guilt. "Sounds incredible," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Henry stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "You sure you're okay? You seem off." Lily's resolve cracked. "I'm fine," she lied, turning to leave. "I should get back to work." Henry caught her arm gently, his touch warm. "Lily, if something's going on, you can tell me. I know we're just whatever we are, but I care." The words hit her like a punch. She wanted to confess, to spill everything about Marcus, but fear for Ben's future stopped her. "Thanks," she said, pulling away. "I'll see you around." As she left, Lily glanced back at the folder on Henry's desk. She hadn't taken the photo, but the temptation lingered, a dark whisper in her mind. That evening, Marcus called her into his office at Reed Innovations. The room was cold, all glass, and sharp edges, a stark contrast to the warmth of Henry's home. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his smile sharp as a blade. "So what did you find at Caldwell's?" Lily's hands clenched in her lap. "Nothing specific," she said, her voice steady, despite the panic rising in her chest. "He mentioned a project called Empatha, which is something about AI and emotions, but that's it." Marcus's eyes narrowed, his smile fading. "That's it, Lily. I hired you because I thought you were smart. You were in his office. You didn't see anything. Papers, files, anything." Lily shook her head, her throat tight. "It was just a quick visit. I didn't want to seem nosy." Marcus leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "You're not just a barista anymore, Lily. You're part of my team, and I expect results. If you can't deliver, I'll find someone who can. And I'd hate for Ben to suffer because you couldn't follow through." The mention of her son made Lily's blood run cold. "I'm trying," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll get you something. Give me time." Marcus's smile returned, but it was cold. "One more chance, Lily. Please don't disappoint me." The next day, Lily was back at Brood Awakening, her mind storming with guilt and fear. When Henry walked in, her heart lifted and sank simultaneously. He leaned against the counter, his smile easy but his eyes concerned. "You didn't seem yourself yesterday," he said, accepting his coffee. "Everything okay?" Lily wanted to tell him the truth, to confess Marcus's demands, but the fear of losing her job and Ben's stability held her back. "Just tired," she said, forcing a smile. "Long week." Henry studied her, his expression unreadable. "If you ever need a break, you and Ben are welcome at my place. No expectations, just a safe space." The offer was so genuine that it made her chest ache. "Thanks," she said softly. "I'll think about it." As Henry left, Lily's phone buzzed with another text from Marcus, time's running out. "Get me something on Empatha or you're done." She stared at the screen, her hands trembling. She'd avoided betraying Henry so far, but Marcus's threats were closing in. Caught between her heart and her survival, Lily felt the fragile trust she'd built with Henry slipping away. The Seattle skyline was shrouded in mist. The city's lights blurred as Lily drove to Henry's house on Lake Washington. It was Saturday, and she'd agreed to another dinner with Henry and Ben, unable to resist Ben's excitement or the pull she felt toward Henry. But Marcus's ultimatum hung over her like a guillotine. "Get me something on Empatha by Monday, or you're out." The words had kept her awake for nights, her dreams haunted by the choice between betraying Henry and protecting her son. Ben sat in the back seat, clutching his robot toy and chattering about a new game he'd invented. "It's called Robot Rescue Mom. You have to save the city from evil drones." Lily smiled, but it felt brittle. "Sounds like you're the hero, buddy." Inside, she was crumbling. She'd seen the Empatha folder in Henry's office, its contents a goldmine for Marcus. A photo could secure her job, but the thought of betraying Henry churned her stomach. He'd been kind, his warmth starkly contrasted to Marcus's cold manipulation. But kindness didn't pay bills, and Ben's future was non-negotiable. Henry's house glowed warmly against the twilight, its windows reflecting the shimmering lake. He greeted them at the door, his smile disarming. "Hey, you two," he said, kneeling to high-five Ben. "Ready for some tacos?" I tried my hand at homemade salsa. Ben's eyes lit up. "Tacos? Can I help?" Henry laughed, leading Ben to the kitchen. "You're hired, kid. Let's see your chopping skills." Lily followed, her heart heavy. The house was as inviting as before, with soft lighting and the faint scent of spices. Henry had set the table with colorful plates, a nod to Ben's love of bright things. As they ate, Ben dominated the conversation, telling Henry about his robot game, while Henry listened with rapt attention, asking questions that made Ben beam. "You're good with him," Lily said quietly, watching Henry help Ben fold a taco. "Not many people take the time." Henry shrugged, his eyes warm. "He makes it easy. Reminds me of... I don't know, a version of myself I never got to be." Lily tilted her head, curious. "What do you mean?" Henry hesitated, his gaze drifting to the lake outside. "I didn't have much of a family growing up. Foster homes mostly. I learned early to rely on myself. But being around Ben, around you, it's like seeing what I missed." The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. She wanted to reach for his hand to tell him how much his words meant, but Marcus's threat loomed. After dinner, Henry took Ben to the living room to show him a new gadget, a small robot that could follow voice commands. Lily lingered in the dining room, her eyes drawn to Henry's office down the hall. The door was ajar, and the Empatha folder was on his desk. Her heart pounded. This was her chance. She could slip in, snap a photo, and be done with Marcus. But as she stepped toward the office, Ben's laughter rang out, followed by Henry's warm chuckle. The sound stopped her cold. She couldn't do it, not yet. Later, as they stood on the deck overlooking the lake, the moonlight casting silver ripples across the water, Henry turned to Lily. "You've been quiet tonight," he said softly. "Something's going on. You don't have to tell me, but I'm here." Lily's throat tightened. The urge to confess was overwhelming, but fear held her back. "It's work," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Things are complicated." Henry nodded, his eyes searching hers. "If you ever need help, Lily, I mean it. You and Ben aren't alone." The words broke something in her. She wanted to believe him, to trust that he could be part of her world, but Marcus's threats were a constant reminder of her reality. As they said goodnight, Henry hugged Ben, then turned to Lily, his hand brushing hers. "Come back soon," he said, his voice low. "This place feels better with you here." Lily managed a nod, her heart aching as she drove away. Ben fell asleep in the back seat, his robot toy clutched to his chest, and Lily's resolve hardened. She couldn't betray Henry, but couldn't lose Marcus's job. There had to be another way. On Monday, Lily sat in Marcus's office, her hands clammy as she faced him. His smile was as sharp as ever, his eyes gleaming with expectation. "Well, Lily, what do you have for me?" Lily took a deep breath, her mind racing. She'd spent the weekend agonizing over her options, and she'd come up with a plan, a risky one. "I saw a folder in Henry's office," she said, her voice steady. "It's called Empatha. It's an AI project, something about emotions. But I didn't get details." "He's careful." Marcus leaned forward, his expression hungry. "A folder. That's a start. Did you get a look inside?" Lily shook her head, her lie practiced. It was closed, and he was right there. I couldn't risk it. Marcus's smile faded, his eyes narrowing. You're not trying hard enough, Lily. I need more than vague promises. Get me that folder or something like it by the end of the week, or you and Ben are on your own. The threat hit like a slap. Lily knotted her throat tight. I'll get it, she said, hating the words as they left her mouth. That evening, Lily returned to Henry's office under the guise of another coffee delivery. Her heart pounded as she stepped inside the Empatha folder, still on his desk. Clara had said Henry was in a meeting, giving her a narrow window. She set the coffee tray down, her hands shaking, as she pulled out her phone. One photo, and Marcus would be satisfied. One photo, and Ben's future would be secure. But as she aimed the camera at the folder, Henry's voice echoed in her mind. I care. His kindness, vulnerability, and how he'd played with Ben were all too real. She lowered the phone, tears stinging her eyes. She couldn't do it. When Henry returned, he found her standing by his desk, her face pale. Lily, he said, concerned about etching his features. What's wrong? The dam broke. I can't do this, she whispered, her voice cracking. Marcus, he hired me to spy on you. He wants your project Empatha. I didn't want to, but I needed the money for Ben and I. Henry's expression hardened, but his voice was gentle. Hey, slow down. Tell me everything. Sobbing, Lily spilled the truth. Marcus's job, his threats, the pressure to betray Henry. When she finished, she braced for anger, but Henry only stepped closer, his hand resting on her shoulder. You didn't do it, he said softly. That's what matters. Lily shook her head, tears falling. I almost did. I'm so sorry. Henry pulled her into a hug, his arms steady. We'll figure this out, he said. Together. As Lily clung to him, the weight of her guilt began to lift, replaced by a fragile hope. Marcus was still a threat, but for the first time, she didn't feel alone. Under the shadow of betrayal, she and Henry had found something more substantial: trust. The Seattle night was alive with the hum of the city, its lights reflecting off the rain-slicked streets as Lily Tran sat in her small apartment, her heart still racing from her confession to Henry Caldwell. The memory of his arms around her, his steady voice promising they'd face Marcus Reed together, lingered like a lifeline. But the relief of unburdening her guilt was tempered by fear. Marcus's threat, get me something on Empatha, or you're out, still hung over her, and the thought of losing the job that kept her and Ben afloat made her stomach churn. She glanced at her 6-year-old son, asleep on the couch, with his robot toy clutched to his chest, and steeled herself. She'd made her choice, but the consequences were far from over. Henry had insisted she come to his office the next morning to plan their next steps. As Lily locked her apartment and headed to bed, her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. I'm waiting, Lily. Please don't make me regret hiring you. The words sent a chill down her spine. She didn't reply, but the message was a stark reminder of her danger. Marcus wasn't just a demanding boss. He was a predator, and she'd unwittingly stepped into his trap. The next morning, Lily dropped Ben off at his after-school program, her mind a storm of worry and resolve. She drove to Caldwell Technologies, where the sleek glass tower starkly contrasted the cozy chaos of Brood Awakening. The lobby was a gleaming expanse of marble, and the receptionist ushered her to the top floor with a polite smile. Henry's office was as she remembered it, minimalist, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Puget Sound. He stood when she entered, his blue eyes warm but serious. Lily, he said, gesturing to a chair. You okay? She nodded, though her hands trembled slightly as she sat. I'm sorry again, Henry. I should have told you sooner. He shook his head, his expression gentle. You were protecting Ben. I get it. But we need to stop Marcus before he does real damage. Lily's throat tightened. What can we do? He's expecting me to deliver something tomorrow. If I don't, he'll fire me, and I can't afford that. Henry leaned forward, his voice steady. We will give him what he wants, or at least what he thinks he wants, a decoy. I've got my team working on a fake set of documents for Empatha, something convincing enough to fool him but useless in practice. You'll deliver it, keep your job, and we'll buy time to expose him. Lily's eyes widened. You'd do that? After I almost betrayed you. Henry's smile was slight but genuine. You didn't betray me, Lily. You chose to tell me the truth. That's more than most people would do. The weight of his words settled over her, easing the knot in her chest. What's in the fake documents? She asked. Technical gibberish. Henry said, a hint of mischief in his eyes. Enough buzzwords to sound real, but it's all nonsense. My team's good at this. Marcus will think he's got the keys to Empatha, but he'll be chasing his tail. Lily nodded, a flicker of hope igniting. And then what? He'll eventually figure out it's fake. Henry's expression darkened. That's where we get him. Marcus has been trying to hack our servers for weeks. If he uses the fake data, he'll tip his hand, maybe try to sell it or build something with it. When he does, we'll have evidence to take him down. I've got my security team ready to trace his moves. The plan was bold, but it made sense. Lily felt a surge of gratitude for Henry's trust, but fear lingered. What if he finds out I'm playing him? He mentioned Ben and Henry. He knows how to hurt me. Henry's jaw tightened, his eyes flashing with anger. He won't touch you or Ben. I promise you that. I've got people watching Marcus, and I'm not letting him anywhere near you too. Lily wanted to believe him, but the memory of Marcus's cold smile made her shiver. Okay, she said softly. I'm in. What do I need to do? Henry handed her a flash drive. This has the fake documents. Give it to Marcus tomorrow. Tell him you found it in my office. Act nervous, like you're scared of getting caught. He'll eat it up. Lily took the drive, her fingers brushing his. The brief contact sent a jolt through her, a reminder of the connection growing between them. Thank you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, for trusting me. Henry's eyes softened. You're worth trusting, Lily. Don't forget that. That evening, Lily sat at her kitchen table, the flash drive tucked into her purse. Ben was drawing at the coffee table, his crayons scattered across a picture of a robot saving a city. She watched him, her heart aching with love and fear. The plan was risky, but it was her only way out. If Marcus suspected the documents were fake, he could retaliate, and Ben would be caught in the crossfire. Her phone buzzed with a text from Henry. You've got this. Call me after you meet Marcus tomorrow. I'm here. The message was simple, but it steadied her. She typed a quick reply. Thanks. I'll let you know, and set the phone down, her resolve hardening. The next morning, Lily stood outside Reed Innovations, the flash drive burning a hole in her purse. The glass tower loomed above her, its sleek facade a reminder of Marcus's power. She took a deep breath, channeling the nervous energy Henry had suggested, and stepped inside. Marcus was waiting in his office, his smile sharp as he gestured to a chair. Lily, right on time. I hope you've got something good for me. Lily's hands shook as she pulled out the flash drive, her voice trembling enough to sell the act. I found this in Henry's office. It's got stuff about Empatha. I didn't read it, but it looked important. Please don't tell anyone I took it. Marcus's eyes gleamed as he took the drive, plugging it into his laptop. Well done, Lily. I knew you'd come through. He scanned the files, his smile widening. This is precisely what I needed. You've earned your keep. Lily forced a nod, her stomach churning. Can I go now? I don't want Henry to suspect anything. Marcus waved a hand, already engrossed in the files. Go. I'll call you if I need you. As Lily left, her heart pounded with relief and dread. She'd done it, but the game was far from over. She drove to Brood Awakening, her shift a welcome distraction, and texted Henry. Gave him the drive. He bought it. Now what? Henry's reply was immediate. Great job. Lie low, and I'll handle the rest. Meet me tonight. Lily hesitated, then typed. Okay, your place after Ben's asleep. That night, Lily left Ben with a trusted neighbor and drove to Henry's house. The lake shimmered under the moonlight, and Henry greeted her at the door, his expression a mix of relief and concern. You did it, he said, pulling her into a hug. I'm proud of you. Lily clung to him, the day's tension melting under his warmth. I was so scared, she admitted. What if he figures out it's fake? Henry led her to the living room where a fire crackled in the hearth. He won't, not right away. My team is monitoring his network. If he tries to use the data, we'll catch him. In the meantime, you're safe. Lily sank onto the couch, her eyes drifting to the lake outside. I don't feel safe. Marcus knows about Ben. If he thinks I crossed him. Henry sat beside her, his hand resting on hers. I meant what I said. I won't let him hurt you or Ben. I've got security watching your apartment, and I'm working on getting evidence to take Marcus down for good. Lily looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude and something more profound. Why are you doing this, Henry? I'm nobody, just a barista who got in over her head. Henry's eyes locked onto hers, intense and unwavering. You're not nobody, Lily. You're real. You and Ben make me feel like there's more to life than code and competition. I'm doing this because I care about you. The words hung in the air, raw and honest. Lily's breath caught, and the world narrowed to just them for a moment, the firelight casting soft shadows across their faces. She leaned forward, her lips brushing his in a tentative kiss. Henry froze, then deepened the kiss, his hand cupping her face. When they pulled apart, Lily's cheeks were flushed, her heart racing. I'm scared, she whispered. Not just of Marcus, but of this. Of us. Henry nodded, his thumb brushing her cheek. Me too. But we'll figure it out together. As Lily drove home, the memory of the kiss lingered, a beacon in the storm. Marcus was still a threat, but with Henry by her side, she felt a strength she hadn't known she possessed. The plan was in motion, and for the first time, she dared to hope they'd win. The Seattle morning dawned gray and heavy, the air thick with the promise of rain. Lily Tran sat outside Ben's school in her car, watching him wave through the window as he joined his classmates. Her heart swelled with love, but fear gnawed at her. The fake Empatha documents had bought her time with Marcus, but the clock was ticking. Henry's plan to trap Marcus relied on him taking the bait, but Lily and Ben could pay the price if he suspected the deception. At Brood Awakening, the morning rush kept Lily's hands busy, but her mind was elsewhere. Henry's kiss from the night before replayed in her thoughts, a mix of warmth and worry. Despite the danger, she'd let herself fall for him, and now their fates were intertwined. Her phone buzzed with a text from Henry. Marcus is moving. My team caught him trying to access the fake data on a secure server. Meet me at my office after your shift. Lily's pulse quickened. The plan was working, but the stakes were higher than ever. She typed a quick reply, I'll be there, and focused on her work, pouring coffee with a smile that hid her turmoil. At Caldwell Technologies, Henry stood in his office, his team gathered around a conference table, littered with laptops and coffee cups. The air was tense, the hum of servers a constant backdrop. Clara, his assistant, coordinated with the security team, her fingers flying across her keyboard as she tracked Marcus's digital footprint. He's taken the bait, Clara said, her voice steady. He's trying to reverse engineer the fake Empatha data. We've got logs of his access attempts and they're sloppy. He's rushing. Henry nodded, his jaw tight. Good. Let him think he's winning. The more he digs, the more evidence we have. His lead engineer Raj looked up from his laptop. We can nail him for corporate espionage if he tries to sell or use this publicly. But we must catch him in the act, a press conference, or a pitch to investors. Henry's eyes narrowed. He's vain enough to go public. Let's push him toward it. Leak a rumor that Empath is about to launch. He'll want to beat us to the punch. Clara frowned. What about Lily? If Marcus suspects she's involved, he could go after her. Henry's chest tightened. She's covered. I've got security on her and Ben, and I'm meeting her this afternoon to keep her in the loop. Marcus won't touch them. As the team dispersed, Henry's thoughts turned to Lily. Her courage in confessing to Marcus's scheme and vulnerability in his arms last night had changed something in him. He'd spent years building walls, but Lily and Ben had slipped through, making him want a life beyond his empire. But first, he had to protect them. Lily's shift at Brood Awakening ended in a blur, and she drove to Caldwell Technologies, her nerves frayed. The lobby was as imposing as ever, but Clara greeted her warmly, escorting her to Henry's office. He was waiting, his expression a mix of determination and relief. "You're here," he said, pulling her into a quick hug. "Marcus is moving faster than we thought. He's already sharing the fake data with his team and trying to build a prototype." Lily's eyes widened. "That's good. It means he bought it." Henry nodded, leading her to a chair. "It's good, but it's not over. We need him to go public with it. Make a big move we can trace. My team's planting a rumor that Empatha's launching next week. Marcus will want to steal the spotlight, probably with a press conference." Lily's stomach twisted. And if he figures out it's fake before then? Henry's hand found hers, his grip steady. He won't. The data's convincing, and he's too arrogant to question it. But we need to keep you out of his reach. I want you and Ben to stay at my place until this ends. Lily hesitated, her independence warring with her fear. "Henry, I can't just move in with you. Ben's got school, I've got work," Henry said. "I'm not asking you to move in," his voice gentle. "Just a few days until Marcus is neutralized. I've got security space for Ben to play, and you'll both be safe. Please, Lily." The sincerity in his eyes broke her resolve. "Okay," she said softly to Ben. Henry smiled, relief flooding his features. "Thank you. I'll have Clara arrange everything." That evening, Lily and Ben settled into Henry's guest room, a spacious suite with a lake view. Ben was thrilled, racing around with his robot toys, while Lily felt like an intruder in Henry's world. But his warmth made it easier. Dinner was a casual affair with Ben, teaching Henry how to play robot rescue on the living room floor. Lily watched, her heart swelling at the sight of them together. Later, as Ben slept, Lily and Henry sat on the deck, the moonlight casting silver ripples across the water. "This feels like a dream," she said, her voice quiet. "You, this place, all of it." Henry took her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "It's real, Lily. And I want you and Ben in my life, not just for now, but for good." The words hit her like a wave. She wanted to believe him, to let herself fall completely, but fear lingered. What happens after Marcus? Your world and mine. They're so different. Henry's eyes were steady. "We'll figure it out. Together." The next day the trap closed. Henry's team leaked the rumor about Empatha's launch, and Marcus took the bait, announcing a press conference to unveil his groundbreaking AI. Henry watched the live stream from his office, Lily at his side, as Marcus stood before a crowd of reporters boasting about his new technology. The fake data was front and center, projected on a screen behind him. "He's done," Henry said, his voice low with triumph. "Every word he's saying is evidence of theft. My team's recording it all." Lily's heart pounded as Marcus's speech ended, and Henry stepped forward, his face appearing on the live feed. He walked onto the stage, his presence commanding, and addressed the crowd. He said, "What you've just seen is a fraud," his voice steady. "We have proof that Marcus Reed stole proprietary data from Caldwell Technologies." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Marcus's face paled, his smile frozen as Henry's team projected logs of his server breaches and the fake data he'd used. As Marcus stammered, reporters swarmed, questions flying, his empire crumbling in real time. Lily watched, her breath catching. It was over. Marcus was exposed, his threats neutralized. She turned to Henry, tears in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. "We did it," he corrected, pulling her close. "You're free now." As they left the press conference hand in hand, Lily felt the weight of fear lift, replaced by a fragile hope. Marcus was finished, but her future with Henry was beginning. Under the Seattle sky with Ben waiting at home, she dared to believe in a new chapter where trust and love could light the way. The Seattle skyline shimmered under a rare autumn sun, its light glinting off the glass towers and the calm waters of the Puget Sound. Lily Tran stood in the small kitchen of her Rainier Valley apartment, packing the last of her dishes into a cardboard box. The air was thick with the scent of cardboard and packing tape, a tangible reminder of the change sweeping through her life. It had been a week since Henry Caldwell had exposed Marcus Reed's deception at the press conference, a moment that had dismantled Marcus's empire and freed Lily from his threats. The relief was profound, but came with new uncertainties. Chief among them, her growing feelings for Henry and the life he offered her and Ben. Ben, her 6-year-old son, bounded into the kitchen, his curls bouncing as he clutched a toy robot. "Mom, can I bring my spaceship to Henry's house? It's got lasers." His brown eyes sparkled with excitement, oblivious to the moment's wait. Lily smiled, kneeling to his level. "Of course, buddy. But we're not moving in with Henry. Okay? We're just staying there for a bit while we figure things out." Ben nodded, already distracted by his robot. Lily's heart ached with love and a twinge of guilt. She'd temporarily agreed to stay at Henry's Lake Washington home, driven by his insistence on keeping her and Ben safe after Marcus's downfall. But the idea of living in a billionaire's world even briefly felt like stepping onto a tightrope. Henry's kindness, warmth with Ben, and the kiss they'd shared all felt like a dream she wasn't sure she deserved. Her phone buzzed on the counter, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a text from Henry. "Everything's set for the move. I've got the guest room ready, and Ben's got a surprise waiting." Lily's lips curved into a smile, her nerves easing slightly. She typed back, "Packing now. Be there this afternoon." "What's the surprise?" Henry's reply was quick. "You'll see. Ben's gonna love it." Lily set the phone down, her mind drifting to the past week. After the press conference, Marcus had vanished from the public eye, his company reeling from lawsuits and investigations. Henry's team had provided airtight evidence of his corporate espionage, ensuring he'd face legal consequences. Lily's role in the deception, delivering the fake Empatha documents, had remained a secret known only to Henry and his trusted inner circle. The knowledge that she'd helped bring Marcus down was empowering, but it didn't erase the fear that had driven her to that point. Her shifts had resumed their usual rhythm at Brood Awakening, but the coffee shop felt different now. Her coworkers had noticed her distraction, teasing her about her mystery man. Lily brushed it off, but the truth was undeniable. Henry was no longer just a customer. He was a presence in her life, one she couldn't ignore. That afternoon, Lily and Ben arrived at Henry's house, their car loaded with boxes and bags. The modern glass-walled home stood against the backdrop of Lake Washington, its clean lines softened by the golden light of the setting sun. Henry greeted them at the door, his blonde hair slightly tousled, his blue eyes warm with a smile that made Lily's heart skip. "Welcome back," he said, kneeling to high-five Ben. "Ready for your surprise, kid?" Ben's eyes lit up. "Is it a robot?" Henry laughed, leading them inside. "Better. See?" He took them to the backyard, where a small playset had been installed, a miniature climbing wall, a slide and a rope swing, all tailored to a 6-year-old's imagination. Ben gasped, dropping his robot toy and racing toward the playset. "This is awesome!" he shouted, scrambling up the climbing wall with fearless enthusiasm. Lily turned to Henry, her throat tight. "You did this?" For Ben. Henry shrugged, a hint of shyness in his expression. "He'd like a place to play while you're here. And I wanted you both to feel at home." The gesture overwhelmed her. She reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "Thank you, Henry. This means more than you know." He held her gaze, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "I want you to feel safe here, Lily, both of you." They spent the afternoon settling in, Ben's laughter filling the air as he explored the playset. Henry helped Lily unpack his easy banter, easing her nerves. The guest suite was spacious, with a view of the lake and a small bed for Ben covered in robot-themed sheets. As night fell, they ordered pizza and ate on the deck, the lake shimmering under the moonlight. Ben dominated the conversation, telling Henry about his latest robot game, while Lily watched, her heart swelling at the sight of them together. Later, with Ben asleep, Lily and Henry sat by the fire in the living room, the crackle of the flames, a soft counterpoint to the quiet. "This feels too good to be true," Lily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "You, this place, the way you are with Ben. I keep waiting for the catch." Henry's eyes softened, but there was a seriousness in his expression. "There's no catch, Lily. I know our worlds are different, but I meant what I said before. I want you and Ben in my life, not just for now, but for keeps." The words hit her like a wave, stirring a mix of hope and fear. "Henry, I'm a single mom with a minimum wage job and a beat-up car. You're you. How does this even work?" He leaned closer, his hand finding hers. "We make it work, step by step. I don't care about the differences. I care about you." Lily's breath caught, and she leaned forward, kissing him softly. The kiss deepened, a quiet promise of something new. When they pulled apart, Henry rested his forehead against hers. "We'll figure it out," he whispered. "Together." The next few days were a whirlwind of adjustment. Lily continued her shifts at Brood Awakening, while Ben thrived in Henry's home, his days filled with school and playtime on the new playset. Henry was a constant presence, joining them for breakfast, helping Ben with his homework, and stealing quiet moments with Lily by the lake. But beneath the warmth, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that their happiness was fragile, a bubble waiting to burst. One evening, as Lily was closing up the coffee shop, her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Hello, Lily." Marcus's voice was low-laced with venom. "You thought you could play me?" Her heart stopped. "Marcus, what are you—" "Don't." He cut her off. "I know the empatha data was fake. You and Caldwell set me up. Did I not figure it out?" Lily's hands trembled, her voice barely steady. "I don't know what you're talking about. I gave you what I found." Marcus laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "You're a terrible liar." "I'm not done, Lily. You and that kid of yours watch your backs." The line went dead. Lily stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. Fear coursed through her sharper than ever. She called Henry immediately, her voice shaking as she relayed the call. "Stay where you are." Henry said, his tone calm but urgent. "I'm sending security to pick you up. You and Ben will stay with me until we sort this out." Lily nodded, though he couldn't see her. "Okay. Keep Ben safe." "I will," Henry promised. "I'm not letting anything happen to either of you." That night, Lily and Ben stayed in Henry's guest suite with security guards stationed outside. Henry sat with her, his presence a steady anchor. "Marcus is desperate," he said. "He's got no leverage left, but he's dangerous when cornered. My team's tracking him. We'll end this." Lily clung to his hand, her fear tempered by his resolve. As she watched Ben sleep, his robot toy tucked under his arm, she knew she'd do anything to protect him, even if it meant trusting Henry completely. The future was uncertain, but she felt ready to face it for the first time with him by her side. The Seattle autumn had settled into a rhythm of crisp days and chilly nights, the city's trees ablaze with red and gold. Lily Tran stood on the deck of Henry Caldwell's Lake Washington home, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea as she watched the sunrise paint the lake in soft pinks and oranges. Ben was inside, still asleep, his small frame curled under the robot-themed sheets Henry had chosen. The past week had been a whirlwind of change, fear, and hope. But as Lily stood there, the weight of Marcus Reed's threat felt distant, overshadowed by the new life she was beginning to imagine. Marcus's call had shaken her, but Henry's response had been swift and decisive. His security team had tracked Marcus to a rented office on the city's outskirts, where he'd been hiding since the press conference. Henry had coordinated with law enforcement, providing evidence of Marcus's ongoing harassment and past espionage. The authorities had issued a warrant, and Marcus was now in custody, his threats reduced to empty echoes. Lily's relief was profound, but it came with a new question. What came next for her? Ben and Henry. Henry stepped onto the deck, his blonde hair catching the morning light. He wore a simple sweater, his blue eyes soft as they met hers. "Morning," he said, his voice warm. "You're up early." Lily smiled, her heart lifting at the sight of him. "Couldn't sleep too much on my mind." He nodded, stepping closer. "Good things, I hope." She laughed softly, the sound tinged with nerves. "Mostly. I'm just trying to wrap my head around all this. You us this place. It's a lot." Henry's hand found hers, his touch steady. "I know, but we've got time to figure it out." The past week had been a turning point. Staying at Henry's house had given Lily and Ben a sense of safety, but it was more than that. Henry had become a part of their lives, as natural as the lake outside. He'd helped Ben build a model rocket, stayed up late talking with Lily about her dreams, and made her feel seen in a way she hadn't thought possible. But the gap between their worlds still loomed, a shadow she couldn't ignore. That afternoon, Henry took Lily and Ben to Green Lake Park, a place that had become their sanctuary. Ben raced ahead, kicking a soccer ball across the grass, while Lily and Henry strolled, their hands brushing. The park was alive with families, joggers and dogs, the air filled with laughter and the rustle of leaves. "Ben's thriving here," Henry said, watching the boy chase the ball. "He's got a spark, you know, like you." Lily's cheeks warmed. "He's my everything. I want him to have a good life where he doesn't have to worry about money or safety." Henry stopped, turning to face her. "He will, Lily. And so will you. I want to be part of that if you'll let me know." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Lily's heart raced, her mind grappling with what he was offering. "Henry, I care about you, more than I thought I could. But your world, it's so different. I'm scared I'll get lost in it." Henry's eyes were steady, unwavering. "You won't. You're stronger than you think, and I'm not asking you to change who you are. I want to build something with you and Ben, a family, if that's what you want." The word family hit her like a wave. She thought of Ben, the father he'd never had, and the loneliness she'd carried for years. Henry wasn't just offering safety, he was offering a future. Tears pricked her eyes, and she nodded, unable to speak. Henry pulled her into a hug, his arms a warm anchor. "We'll take it slow," he whispered. "No pressure." Ben ran over, breathless and grinning. "Henry, kick the ball with me." Henry laughed, releasing Lily to join Ben on the grass. As she watched them play, her heart swelled with a hope she hadn't dared to feel. For the first time, she could imagine a life where Ben had a father figure, where she wasn't alone. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. That evening, Henry surprised Lily with a proposal not of marriage, but of a new home. He'd found a house for sale near Lake Washington, smaller than his, but perfect for a small family, with a yard for Ben and a view of the water. "I'm not saying you have to move in with me," he said, showing her photos on his tablet. "But I want you and Ben to have a place that's yours, where you feel safe and settled. I'll cover the cost, but there are no strings." Lily's breath caught. "Henry, that's too much. I can't let you—" "You're not letting me," he interrupted gently. "I want to do this. You and Ben deserve a home, and I want to be part of making that happen." Tears spilled down her cheeks, and she hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." The next day, they toured a charming 2-story house with a wraparound porch and a treehouse in the backyard. Ben was ecstatic, climbing into the treehouse with a whoop of joy. Lily walked through the rooms, imagining a life there, a place where Ben could grow, where she could build something with Henry. It felt like a dream, but Henry's steady presence made it real. Weeks later, Lily and Ben moved into the new house, their belongings mingling with new furniture Henry had helped pick out. Brood awakening remained a part of Lily's life. Still, she'd cut back her hours, taking a part-time role at Caldwell Technologies as an office assistant, a job Henry had offered without any connection to Marcus's schemes. The work was fulfilling, and the extra income gave her breathing room. Henry became a constant in their lives, spending evenings with them, helping Ben with his robot projects, and stealing quiet moments with Lily under the stars. One night, Henry took her hand as they sat on the porch of their new home, the lake shimmering under the moonlight. "I love you, Lily," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "And Ben, I want to be his dad if you'll let me." Lily's heart swelled, tears streaming down her face. "I love you too," she said, her voice trembling. "And Ben, he already looks up to you like a father." Henry pulled her close, kissing her deeply under the moonlit sky. Ben ran out as they held each other, clutching a new robot he'd built with Henry's help. "Look, Mom, it lights up," Lily laughed, pulling Ben into their embrace. The three stood together, a family forged through trust and love, their future bright under the Seattle stars. Marcus's shadow was gone, replaced by a life Lily had never dared to dream of, a life where she and Ben were safe, loved, and home.